Fentanyl and other synthetic opiates are driving unprecedented overdose deaths across a broad age range of the U.S. population. In fact, in the 12-month period ended August 2023, it was reported that over 80,000 people in the U.S. died of an opiate overdose, of which over 90%, approximately 74,000, were linked to synthetic opiates. Today, I have Dr. Jerome Adams, Executive Director of Health Equity Initiatives, Purdue University, and Madeline Hilliard, founder of Team Awareness, if I'm saying this right, Combating Overdose, which is TACO, and Dopage. Is that right, Madeline?
Yes, correct. It's Team Awareness Combating Overdose, or TACO for short.
TACO for short. Great. So let's get started with you. How has the overdose epidemic changed over time?
So, what we've seen over the course of the overdose epidemic is initially it started with overprescription of opioid drugs, right? And then from there moved into once there was crackdown on the overprescription, people moved into using heroin. And now what we've seen is the increased use of fentanyl because it is synthetic, it's cheaper to produce, it's easier to get access to because it doesn't require the same supply chains. And so now, not only is it people that are intentionally using opioids that are overdosing from synthetics, but it's also people that have no intention of using opioids at all that are coming into contact with fentanyl and overdosing because this very potent synthetic opioid, it only takes about 2 milligrams to kill the average person. And it's a white odorless powder that can easily get mixed into counterfeit prescription pills, cocaine, MDMA, any illicit drug that didn't come from your pharmacy. And so we're seeing the overdose rates rise to where this is now the leading cause of death for American adults under 45.
Speaking of 45 and adults, who is at risk for opiate overdose?
Well, certainly persons who inject drugs are at risk for opioid overdoses, and we've long known this to be the case. But as Madeline highlighted, we want young people who to understand that 60% of counterfeit pills out there are testing positive for fentanyl, according to the Office of National Drug Control Policy. So you may be on a college campus and partying and thinking you're taking a Xanax. You may be thinking you're taking MDMA or Molly. You may even be thinking that you're taking cocaine and not realizing that there's fentanyl in it. And that's why we're seeing, again, this precipitous increase in overdoses, particularly amongst young people. And that's why we need them to be prepared to respond, whether you're someone who's using or whether you're someone who's going to be around other people who might be using. We want you to be able to recognize the danger, recognize the signs of an overdose, and respond with an opioid overdose reversal agent such as OPVEE.
And if you're hearing this and thinking, I couldn't do that in the situation of an overdose. That sounds very scary. I will tell you that I personally have trained thousands of students in how and when to administer a nasal reversal agent, call 911, and those students have gone on to reverse overdoses and save lives among their peers. So really, with the understanding of how to recognize an overdose and access to reversal agents like OPVEE or nasal naloxone, anyone can save a life from an opioid overdose. These deaths are preventable.
So, how do you know if someone is overdosing and what are the signs and symptoms?
Yeah, great question. Three things that we pay attention to. Number one, loss of consciousness or someone acting groggy. That's number one. Number two is not breathing or slow breathing. You can put your hand over someone's chest to feel whether or not they're breathing. And number three is pinpoint pupils. An opioid overdose causes the black part of your eyes to get really, really small. If you see someone with any of these signs or symptoms, you should suspect an overdose. You should call 911. And if you have an opioid overdose reversal agent available, like OPVEE, you should administer it. Incredibly safe. You're not going to hurt someone, even if they're not having an overdose, by giving it. But by giving it, you may actually save their life.
So just to reinforce that, if you're unsure as to whether or not someone's overdosing, give the reversal agent, whether it's OPVEE or nasal naloxone. It's not going to hurt them if they're not overdosing on an opioid, but if they are, it will save their life.
What are the attributes of OPVEE that should be considered?
So again, going back to the fact that if whether or not someone's overdosing on an opioid, it's not going to cause them harm if you administer Opvi. So that's a wonderful thing about this agent that's available. But also when we're talking about fentanyl, which is fast acting and long lasting, Opvi has been designed and approved by the FDA specifically for reversal of fentanyl overdoses. So it's very well indicated in this instance.
It's a fentanyl fighter, to put it very simply. And when we're looking at 90% of overdoses and overdose deaths involving fentanyl, we need to have the right tools at our disposal.
Why is speed of onset an important attribute of opiate overdose rescue medications?
Well, we know that time is brain. It takes about 4 minutes of lack of oxygen before you start to lose brain function, and so or before you can actually die. And so we want people to have an agent that will be appropriate to respond in that time frame. Incredibly important. And also, even if you don't die, we know that 5 to 8 times as many overdoses occur as there are overdose deaths, and those folks can have residual issues involving lack of oxygen to the brain. So the quicker you respond, the more likely you're going to be able to save a life, but also to save brain. And that's why we want people to know about Opti.
Now, where can our viewers go for more information?
Well, for more information, folks can go to www.opve.com. There's great information there about how to recognize an opioid overdose and also information about Opvi and how you can obtain it.
Madeline, can you give us some more information on your organization, Team Awareness Combating Overdose, or otherwise TACO?
So, TACO is for college students to help them access resources and education to prevent overdoses. And students can go to tacoinc.org to access more resources.
Madeline, Dr. Adams, thank you so much for joining us on Morning Blend.
Thank you.
Glad to be here. Thank you.